James Danaskos, we're live.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here. Welcome to Map It Forward podcast, everyone. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by our upcoming Assertiveness workshop happening September 21st, the day after tomorrow in Sydney, Australia. Get your tickets at mapitforward.org/events. Today on the podcast, we have my dear friend, James Danaskos, owner of Shift Eatery, and one of my top 5, if not top 3, favourite people to have a conversation with in the world.
Thanks.
Did you know that? We have pretty rad conversations,
I know
right?
now. Yeah, we do. But they're sporadic. They're far and few between, so I guess.
And I think that's the thing with people like you and I. Like, we don't have to... You're one of those friends of mine that I can go 6 months without talking to you.
Yeah.
And
then just dump all your shit on me.
And dump all your shit, dump all my shit on you. Or I'll get a message from you after months and I'll be like, oh, this is going to be a tasty conversation.
Yeah, cry for help. it's got to be serious.
We both do cries for help for each other.
Yeah, it's great.
It's pretty awesome. Now, you and I clearly don't have anything in common at all. Nothing at all. You were one of the first people in the industry that I met that were aligned with me with regards to veganism.
Oh, really? Yeah. That was a while back.
And it was really great to have someone that could relate to me and that I could relate to that was running a business that was totally plant-based. And where did you... how did you find your way into veganism?
Oh, wow. Yeah, into veganism was interesting. So, obviously, I grew up 27 years, typical traditional Greek upbringing, and then I was in coffee for a few years, and then I had one business for about 3 years, and when I sold that business, I just wanted to take a little mini retirement. So I
that sounds so fucking delicious.
Yeah, it was just like, why do we wait till we're 70 when we're not able to enjoy our lives instead of taking retirement now?
But you and I, being plant-based, will probably be much more able to enjoy our lives at 70.
That's the plan. I want to try and let down as little people as possible when I'm older. Then that's when I started doing some soul searching and how to do better, be better. I was obsessed with money before that, and then just after doing a lot of research into like existentialism and existing pretty much, I was like, okay, cool, well, this might be a good way to go down for veganism wise. Yeah. And then I learnt about the health benefits, and I've had high cholesterol since I was 18. So
was that from the Greek diet?
Yeah, so I was eating protein diet, 6 eggs a day. Chicken.
6 eggs?
Yeah, 6 eggs every morning. Fuck. It was good when I worked
Were you lifting?
When I worked yeah, exactly. Were. So I weighed like 15 kilos more than I weigh now.
But it's all muscle?
In muscle, yeah. And I worked at All Press, so it was great because then they had boiled eggs on the menu, and then so just smash those.
15 of those.
That was the breakfast. So there was that with protein shakes.
There's a name that I haven't heard for ages. All Press.
Exactly. Yeah,
are they still around?
Yeah, they're open. Yeah, I think so. I haven't been past. I don't know anyone that works there anymore, but there's I see people here and there from that time, that era. It was great. That was a really good run. Had a good team.
It was such a great era back then.
Yeah, it was amazing.
15 years ago, it was a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, 15 to 8 years ago, that whole 7 years was fun. Yeah. And everyone was close. Everyone knew each other.
Yeah.
I think,
It was a different era of the coffee industry. We all pretended we knew what we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
I guess so. Yeah.
But, we were all pulling double Rizzies.
Yeah.
And we all thought that was the best way to drink coffee.
And it was like before we knew that it was more of a science and that we were learning still.
Yeah.
New. So, yeah.
And so you're at that point in your life where you think shit's got to change.
Yeah, pretty much. You see people around you getting sick. You see people around you just behaving differently or putting on weight or just whatever. Yeah. My grandparents are all on medication, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, wow. And then I read up on a few books on health. That was quick. Watched a few docos. You can watch like documentaries out on Netflix. They're pretty good and just quick, straight to the point. Then you can link that to environmentalism. Then you go to the ethics, and before you know it, you've got your hands tied. And you just got to make a good decision for yourself and for everyone around you.
It's not hard once you start just scratching the surface of what the fuck they're doing with the way that they present food to us.
The information's there. It's easy. It's just the problem I think that most people encounter is leaving the self and then doing good and committing to it based on your surroundings. So being able to help people around you in way of the environment, and then being able to help the animals by not eating them and killing them. So I think it's important for people to have some sort of self-actualization where they feel comfortable enough with their life to be able to make the change as well. And I think that's where people get caught up a lot.
Because the things that I hear a lot are, I love cheese too much.
Yeah. Again, that's based on the self and the ego. So that's what you're going to hear. Yeah.
Cheese too much.
I need protein.
I need protein.
This,
I can't live without meat. My wife cooks too good. You know, I could never go without pasta. The
best part of that is the science now and all the studies, or the peer-reviewed, the double-blind studies. They're all the information's there, and all the information directing into a plant-based diet for food. And then you've also got the morals and the values where people know that if they see a dog on the floor getting kicked, they're going to help it. So same as if you saw another animal, it's the same thing, but once it's out of sight, it's out of mind.
Help me understand something. Like you deal with plant-based people all day, right? Because you've got shift eatery.
Yeah. Well, we get vegans and non-vegans.
Vegans and
probably
non-vegans.
More non-vegans, yeah.
The part of it I don't get is how people dissociate between their pets. So they can own a dog or have a dog, but still be okay with eating a cow. What's the... I don't get it.
I'm not sure. I was just, like, we're all the same until you're like sort of shown another way.
Yeah.
And
do you
your
talk
eyes
to
are
people
open
about
to it.
that stuff though? Like
not so much. Like there's a lot of people that are doing that. A lot of activists that are doing like their YouTube stuff and their street activism, and they're talking to a lot of people. And it's just cognitive dissonance. So it's the way it is. So in China they eat dogs, but they don't eat dogs here. In India they won't eat cows. In different cultures they won't eat different animals. It's just learned, and we just continue that until we have the time to stop and think. And when you're able to think through things on your own, then a topic like this is sort of it's pretty easy to commit to. It's not even hard after that.
Yeah. Did you find that when you decided to make the transition, did it happen all in one go, or did you transition in some way? Did you go from eating meat to being vegetarian to being vegan, or did you just go straight to being vegan?
I just went straight within like a month or so. So I just, like I said, I was out of work, which is a great benefit to me, and I was able to smash through the books and documentaries and YouTube and whatever videos I wanted to. Talk to a lot of people, do a lot of thinking. I started meditating at that time, so that had helped me get clarity. And then I just decided to stop. And there was two occasions within that month where it was my birthday. So Christine, my partner, had taken me out to...
Shout out to Christine.
Christine. So she said she had booked in. There's a seafood place in the casino. She had booked that, and then she's like, "We have to go there." I'm like, "No, I don't want to eat fish anymore."
Did she know you were going to be vegan at that time?
Yeah, because we were on a break. So I had done all this on my own. So I was on a break from a relationship as well. So it gave me even more time. Yeah. So then we got back together. We were talking again. She said, "I want to take you out for your birthday." So we went out, and I had seafood then. And then we were at a friend's barbecue, and I was still in the stage because when you're transitioning, you don't want to feel like I recommend to people to not feel like you're imprisoned. And if you feel like you still want to go down one path, you're going to have to do it so you can realize that you're not going to get any benefit from it. What I mean is, if we're killing an animal just for one meal, you need to realize that one meal lasts for 10 minutes. It's not going to change your life, but it's going to change that animal's life.
Interesting.
So
drastically.
So I was at a barbecue, and they had chicken wings, and the boys were cooking whatever, and I was looking, and it smelled good because like when you put the seasoning and the salts and the oils and everything, it smells great. And then I tried a chicken wing, and it tasted dry. It was like nothing, and I'm like, oh, cool. So now I know that the benefit that I'm gaining from this one meal compared to the life that I'm taking is unnecessary, and then after that I didn't need anything ever again.
That's about consciousness, though, isn't it? That's
awareness.
About, same thing.
Yeah,
it's this idea of not dissociating from the reasoning of the action that you're taking.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, when you can start ignoring a purpose behind what you're doing, like you're eating something because you need nutrition. Mm-hmm. Are you required? These people who say to me, but we evolved to be carnivores. We don't. These aren't real canines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
That's another one that I keep getting. Yeah. If we weren't supposed to eat meat, we wouldn't have canines.
Like we can, like when people, like I guess when people throw that sort of analogy at me, it's the human body is quite resilient. Like it can put up with a lot of abuse, right?
I know.
So if you think about that, if you think about people that have gone through hardships or war or famine or whatever they've gone through, drug abuse, the human body persists and perseveres more often than not. So we can persevere through a lot of things. Do we want to? And is it the best or a good decision to do that? Probably not, because we're affecting the environment, animals' lives, our own health, and by our health we also mean the people around us, because when we're sick in hospital, they're visiting us and we're taking their stress, we're stressing them out, they're coming to visit us. So it's just like a whole connected circle. So if we can limit that as much as possible, why not?
Well, because people like drama.
How so?
Well, people like to, the way that I see it is often people like the idea of needing other people and being needed by other people. It's an extension of their ego.
Oh, that's different. You can still do something if you want attention.
Right, you could. Yeah. But this is the learnt automatic way of going about doing that. And again, it goes back to consciousness and disassociation from the kinds of egos that, or the kind of ego that people find so easy to tap into. It's part of their conditioning during their critical phase. This is the way that you connect with community, right? Whereas the idea of having a more healthy dependency on each other, where we nurture each other, like you and I have conversations and we feel fed afterwards. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And we're able to keep up with each other. We're able to challenge each other and agree and disagree and do things like that. And it's a healthy kind of engagement. Mm-hmm. There are not a lot of people I can do that with in my life, and I'm sure you experience it. People like us can't talk like that with everybody.
Well, yeah, you can, and then you just get stonewalled.
You get a fucking
train in.
Yeah, so, right. You know what I'm saying?
But you can't. You won't be able to have the exchange as well.
Right.
But it's just about everyone finding their own people and who they resonate, who they match with. I guess. It's hard because we all change. We're constantly changing, and we're constantly growing, and growing in different directions as well. So people will change, and that's why whenever I hear someone's been friends with someone from high school, I'm amazed. I'm like, or primary school, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you still have the same things in common. That's crazy. So yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah, it's again goes back to the ego. The idea, like I've got friends that I've had since for 30 years.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You know, I'm having dinner with my ex-husband tonight.
Oh, nice.
It's one of those things of why do we keep doing these kinds of things? Well, these are people who either my ego wants to stay connected to, or I have a genuine love and affection for these people that I want to keep making sure that I'm connected with them. That. You know. Yeah,
checking in is a little bit different to like being best mates constantly.
Totally.
Like, it's really hard, I think, to go on the same path with someone for a long time, right? So yeah, that's why you need to keep finding and pivoting and matching with people.
I think a lot of it, I feel challenged by the idea of relationships for that reason.
Oh yeah.
Lots of different kinds of relationships, business partnerships, romantic relationships, life partners, things like that. I wonder if it's, and I've not found the answer to this, but I wonder if it's a realistic burden that we put on each other to kind of like go into business with someone forever, because, or be in a life partner situation with someone forever, because I certainly have never experienced being in a relationship with someone and growing at the same level and having the same kind of room to be who you are without pulling too far away from each other, even in business.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's for for me, I'm doing a lot of work now into vulnerability and control.
Yeah.
And I think those play a big part in all relationships, in any type of relationship, and,
Right.
and being able to commit to someone early on, forever technically, is like takes a great deal of vulnerability, and you're putting yourself in their hands. Whereas people that I feel struggle to commit lack vulnerability, and they don't understand the strength in it and the importance of it.
I find that particularly happens in business.
Yeah.
Where people aren't like, well, this is why we started this business, and this is what we've got to do, and this is, and you know, we're tying it back. The best businesses I've seen where people have been in business for a long period of time is where they're looking at having like core values, but a fluid foundation in the sense that it continues to evolve year on year, and they're both open-minded to that.
You have to be, because it's just things are changing so fast. And they're going to continue to change.
It gets quicker though.
Yeah.
I feel like the life cycle of
it is.
all of it.
There's really interesting analogy the guy says about pretty much the hockey stick analogy. So we've just like over the centuries and centuries and centuries, we've learned how to do what we're doing really slow, incrementally, and it's like he explains it as a 700-page book, and it's taken us like 699 pages to get up to here.
Yeah.
And then in the last page, she's just going to go exponential, and it's just going to fucking take off. Like with AI, with everything like that, it's going to learn so much quicker than we've learnt in the last 10,000 years. If you think about it, remember it took us forever with fire, with language, with forming communities. Then when wheat or us
agriculture
domesticated wheat, or they domesticated us, who knows, or it. That's taken a long time, and that learning process was long. Whereas now, AI will learn so much quicker than we can, and he then says that in a few years it's going to be the same as AI explaining to us as it is us explaining to a monkey that we put a satellite in the sky. So we're just going to have no idea what it's talking about. So things will change rapidly, and I don't think no one's ready because we're human, but it's going to change pretty quick. So if we're not ready to change in our business, I think we're going to get left behind.
Do you think that what do you think the role of AI, how do you see it happening? I'm fascinated by AI.
I'm not as fascinated because like I have sort of no control, but it's just gonna be real quick. Like I own a Tesla, and they tell you that your information is being captured, so that way they can make the information safer. Blah blah blah. No personal information shared. All that kind of stuff. But
do you believe them?
I don't care because it's too late anyway.
It's too late.
It's too fucking late.
That's the right way to look at
so
it.
So technically, if you're driving an electric car like a Tesla, and they can control it, they can drive you off the cliff if they want.
Yeah.
Technically, like no one's going to do it, but that's what's the capability of it anyway. So it's just about, I think Musk talks about AI being great and it actually being amazing.
He's terrified of it though.
Oh no, wait, it must be someone else then.
Yeah, because he was on Rogan talking about how it scares him shitless. He's doing it's Yuval. Yeah. He's amazed by it because he just talks about, he goes, without science, you wouldn't be sitting here. Without medicine, you wouldn't be sitting here. Without the advancements that we've made over the last 100 years, nothing would be the way it is. And do you like having your kid alive with you? Do you like not dying at 30? So he says you've got to take the good with the bad. And we don't know what it's capable of, but we also need to be ethical and moral with the way with us sort of learning with it and growing with it. I feel like there's a spot though. Yeah. There's a transitionary phase from like where we are today to the time that AI takes over, and there are people in both camps as to whether AI is going to take over or not. But the transitionary phase from here to the time AI takes over is us handing civilization over to AI. And the way that we do that is going to determine, who knows if it does or if it doesn't, is going to determine how AI takes over. So I think it's hilarious that there are people that are programming and building these things that are going to take a
like the nuclear bomb as well, though.
Right.
Like we sort of, and that's what I think we talked about yesterday. Just quickly, it's we at one stage we weren't the top of the pecking order. We weren't top of the food chain.
Right.
We were like
Dinosaurs
middle.
were.
Not even. We were just middle, and there was other beings and other. It was just we weren't that clever, and now we're at the top of the food chain. So. We're supposed to keep everything going, but really, could we just not be another experiment of the Earth? into this. So then AI will be the next one, and it keeps evolving and keeps evolving. Like the dinosaurs failed, something failed, and then you just keep going.
Well, the dinosaurs got wiped out by an asteroid, and because they got wiped out, we didn't have any predators that stopped our proliferation, and so that's how I understand it anyway. Yeah. So we'll get the Earth will have a different expression of what it wants inhabiting it. Like we're parasites right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we know the sun's got an expiry date. So if for sure, it's going to blow up. It's going to expand. And
I missed the memo. Tell me.
No, it's going to expand and then retract.
Okay.
And then it's going to disappear. I don't know if there's going to be an explosion.
Is there a trajectory?
Of time, there is a time. There is a timeline, but I don't know what that is and if it's going to be accurate.
Okay.
But the point of the matter is, like, how do I explain? We're currently looking to inhabit other planets and how to travel through space, which space is like infinite for all we know. So if the Earth is looking for a way to survive, and then it got hit by an asteroid, so it's like all dinosaurs aren't going to do this, and then we keep evolving. Yeah. Then we don't know what the purpose of it is, but we're currently on a mission to get to another planet, and then to another galaxy, and then who knows after that? And it might just be another survival mechanism of the Earth, because it knows that the sun's going to explode soon. Who knows?
Well, and so that suggests, I guess, that Earth has its own consciousness.
Well, where is consciousness? Where does it lie?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm excited about starting to take mushrooms so that I can start properly exploring that.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Have you done mushrooms yet?
Yeah, twice.
Did you find that it opened up different levels of consciousness for you?
I don't believe that. I didn't experience different levels. For me, it's just the level.
I'm assuming you're not checking your emails.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to go to my notes from when I was in Amsterdam. Because we were just there. So
for anyone who's listening, James has just picked up his phone, and I'm like, okay, maybe he's checking his emails.
It's funny because I wrote this for myself, but because we're talking about it now.
Yeah. Did you write this while you're on mushrooms?
The first time I was in Amsterdam was 8 years ago, and I tried mushrooms then, and I had this. It was like an 8-hour journey, and then for about 2 of those hours, I was sitting silent. I assume it was 2 hours, probably longer or shorter, who knows? But I was silent, and my mind kept connecting dots. So I don't know, connecting with consciousness, and then you figure it out.
Yeah, people keep telling me that. You just get truths.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh, everything makes sense. Everything's great. Yeah. Everything's awesome. Everything's fine.
You let go of stuff.
And then
did you find that?
Well, it helps remove
barriers
and masks and egos or whatever. But it's not even that. You're not leaving the room. You're just within your mind. And even this time, I was just looking into my elbow the whole time for 2 hours. Yeah, it's just amazing. But so what the mind aspect of that is that it just led me to sort of like not the meaning of life or whatever, just like just an understanding of how things should be. And then I went back this time. I had to do them again, but I was like on a mission.
You were forced to.
Yeah, shoved down my throat. And then I didn't want to forget, sort of, in a way. Like I remember you remember the feeling, but you don't remember the journey that you go on.
Yeah.
And then when you're in the middle of it, it's impossible to write notes or to do anything or to talk.
Like in a dream?
Yeah, I'd say like a dream.
Then you wake up and you write everything down?
Well, on the way down, I just was able to sketch some notes, which while I was still having some revelations here and there. So it's just really interesting. And like most people that don't. There's a few people that freak out, and there's like a lot of trials with psilocybin happening, and even have you Johann Hari?
Yeah.
So even in his book, they talk about the trials that they're doing.
Did you read it?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Both, or the second one?
The second one.
Yeah, Lost Connections. Yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome on Rogan. He's.
Oh yeah, he was on Rogan. He follows us on Shift. It's so nice.
Does he really?
Yeah, he found it somehow. I don't know how. He's not even vegan yet. So
he just seems like an absolute sweetheart that's so open to just exploring so much. With regards to...
Well, he was a journalist, and then then sort of turned into this. So he was a journalist with Chasing the Scream first. That was
and he had so much addiction in his family, heroin and all of that.
And mental health,
and mental health in his family. He writes these 2 books. And it's just refreshing to hear somebody not only be able to talk about the discovery of all of that from the numbers perspective, but from his own experience and being able to relate it back to that.
Well, and he toured the world, so both times he's gone around and not just sat in his bubble and talked from his pedestal. Yeah, he's gone around and experienced it.
And he's all about like the idea of stop judging, stop assuming that you know what the fuck addiction is about, because we don't know what the fuck addiction is about. I'm excited about...
Any type of addiction, yeah.
Sorry?
Any type of addiction, yeah.
I'm excited about this time in history because... How old are you?
32.
Okay. There's a couple years between you and I. I feel like both people like you and I don't have an age though.
Yeah, I don't even... Yeah, I
you know what I'm saying?
I forget often, yeah.
So I lived in a time then when... it was predominantly analog. And so I've had the luxury of watching technology transition, and it feels like I feel very blessed to have watched that evolve, because looking at the way we exchanged information through Encyclopedia Britannicas, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, who's listening or watching, Encyclopedia Britannicas, you bought 12 editions or 24 editions.
They used to come to your door.
They would come and knock on your door, and they were physical books, and some families got them every year, and they would cost thousands of dollars. And if you wanted to learn anything, you either had your Encyclopedia Britannica or you went to the library. But now the way information is exchanged makes the life cycle of bullshit so much shorter.
Well, there you go. That just like exemplifies the hockey stick analogy. Like, it wasn't too long ago that we were looking through an encyclopedia to write an assignment.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the A4 cardboards for school. It's like that's what you did. Now everything's online. Soon it's going to be even more direct, and it's just the rate of change is going to be insane. But yeah, with in terms of bullshit, it's hard. Like, and that's why it's amazing that you have so many leaders, business leaders, political leaders that are able to get away with such bullshit, even in this era of less tolerance and more availability to information. It's crazy.
What I'm finding refreshing and scary, because people seem, from what I'm noticing online and in person, people are becoming more hyper aware of the bullshit. And some of those people are taking action. Yeah.
I think a smaller amount,
A smaller amount.
Yeah. And the rest are just confused.
Blowing my mind is that there are people who are aware of it and saying, oh, but that's just how it is now. That's the part that I don't know how to take. Yeah. Because I think I can speak for myself. I'm not somebody who can just watch something like that happen and not like chew on it and try and understand. I guess it depends where your integrity bar is. For me, I can't watch something like that and be okay with people continuing to be fucking morons. Yeah,
that's another good example for why I went vegan as well, because you see the videos, you see what humans are doing to animals.
You can't be complicit in it once you see it. Like then you're just being an arsehole.
I don't know what the name is, but it's like once you see it, once I saw it, it's like, well, I don't like if a dog comes up to me and tries to lick my face, I'm still going to push it away. I don't like hugging dogs or cats. I don't just get off me. Like you still stink and you're hairy.
I'm not an animal person.
Just be over there. It's fine. Like I'm not going to don't leave. I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone. So when you know that what you're doing for no reason, it's just like let's just cut that out.
When it comes to this evolution that we've been talking about of information and the exchange of information and diet and consciousness and all of that, is something that I've been pondering the last few years, and it's the idea of the role that our gut microbiome plays with us as humans. So the relationship between the two. And the question that I keep pondering is, have we evolved to simply act as a host for bacteria and fungus and yeast? Yeah. Or have we evolved in our own right as a species just to exist, and there's a symbiotic relationship between us and our microbiome?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's and it's complex. I think Yuval talks about it a lot through In Sapiens.
Do you have an opinion? Have you thought about it?
No, I haven't thought about it.
Let's do it.
No. So like with him, he even brings up the topic that I just touched on before, that we were nomadic until we discovered wheat, and then we started building our houses next to wheat and our farms. So. And then we sort of domesticated ourselves.
This is in the book Sapiens?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then he talks about, did we domesticate wheat, or did wheat domesticate us?
What a fucking question.
Yeah, because really, if you look at populations by sheer number, you would chickens. There's more chickens on the earth than humans than anything. So technically, they're winning if you look at population by number. So it's like, what's the goal? What's the measure of success? And if you look at wheat and domestication, there, it's like, yeah, cool, wheat won because it stopped us from being nomadic and traveling. And now, and it's not a perfect food either. So an imperfect food
through manipulation.
Well, even just then, didn't have everything we needed to survive, right? So an imperfect food there still stopped us in our tracks, and who knows where we'd be or how we would be living.
All right.
If it wasn't for wheat.
So here's another, when you say something like that, another thing that I spend lots of time pondering is this idea, and I think you and I had a chat about it yesterday, but tell me if I'm wrong. Did we talk about simulation theory yesterday?
Yeah,
Okay. So do you have any opinions on simulation theory?
Do
you know what I...
Yeah, but not explicitly. I guess for me, it's like... For me, I feel like this experience is sort of happening billions of times around the universe. And we are just not aware of it. And it's sort of like...
Simulations?
No, just Earth, like our experience on Earth and our evolution. It's sort of like... I just think it's a game.
And that's what made me think about it, because when you think about the idea, because
But that's not very scientific.
but I'd never thought about it. No, it's not scientific, it's open-minded.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a thought experiment.
Yeah.
This kind of thing pushes the cusp of what's normal to think about, right? But this idea that if wheat conquered us or we conquered wheat, right? Or it stopped us in our tracks. It definitely influenced the evolution of humanity and civilization,
exactly
right? How does wheat know how to do that? That's when I start thinking about simulation theory and think, well, okay, there's a number of different categories you could put that in. It was an unintentional consequence of random chance, right? Or are we in a simulation and somebody thought it would be interesting to see what the humans would do if we deliberately put wheat in front of them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's why I think like this is happening trillions of times. And
infinitely around.
And when we dream, it's like, what are we dreaming about? And where are we going when we do dream? Where does that exist? Where does thought come from? Is there a thought realm, or is what's going on? Because when you're all sitting in the same room as someone and you all get the same idea.
Yep.
That's where's that coming from? So there's got to me, it's just like, why? There's no proof that there isn't. But why can't there be this happening around the world? Which is technically is that sim theory? If there's multiple, or is that multiple sim theory? We just created it.
Yeah. I don't think that there's any one definition for it. I think, I was saying to Christine yesterday when we were talking, this idea that one version of sim theory is that, for anyone who's listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, simulation theory is the idea that the thing that we call life and this existence and world and earth and all of that is a part of a simulation that we exist in, that is a part of other simulations or other worlds, and we, for all intents and purposes, are potentially being controlled by something. Which, when I thought about it, I thought, how the fuck is that different from religion?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Which for me was kind of strange, because I'm like, well, fuck, I went from being really, really Catholic to dissociating from being a part of any religion because I didn't like the idea that I was being controlled by something. And I then live all these years of being like what I call someone who's seeking to understand what truth is and being open-minded and pushing the bounds of what religion and culture teaches you to think like this. I want to remove all of that so I can consider everything. And then you find this idea of simulation theory, and then you think, well, does that mean that I'm being controlled by something or that I'm being influenced by something? So you start looking into that. And one of the ideas, Sam Harris talks about the idea that free will's a lot of shit.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, yeah.
I figured you would.
Yeah, I was right in that, yeah.
And he, free will's one of those interesting ones. And then someone mentioned that one form of the simulation theory could be that everybody that's within the sim, the code that's written is so that the sim, each of us being a different sim, has the freedom to make their own decisions. So each sim is coded into autonomy, or autonomy is coded into each sim.
Yeah, I guess so. That's, yeah. And
it's interesting though, right?
It's interesting, yeah, exactly. Like free will is really interesting when you think of that, and you look at what you're wearing or where you are or what you're doing. It's like, okay, well that all flies in the face of free will.
Yeah, because you're being influenced. It's the wheat thing again, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting and confusing, but it's also.
Do you have an opinion either way? Like, is your brain tending towards or against sim theory? Do you think?
Well, I've always thought that this is happening in multiple realms or Earths or whatever. So.
Do you deja vu?
Do I? Yeah, often. Yeah.
Did you deja vu more after mushrooms?
I don't think. No, not necessarily, but it happens a lot. And then also like lucid dreaming as well. So I think that's all connected. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's all connected. And that's the thing. Where's our mind going? Where's consciousness existing? Where's the mind? So, but it's just all thoughts, and even like to do with with free will. Alan Watts talks about it a lot as well.
He's fucking awesome. I love his lectures.
Yeah, exactly. And he have you heard the one about the dreaming? If you're dreaming,
no.
So if you're like, imagine dreams could last 70 years, because that was the life expectancy when he was alive. So 80 years, and you had full control over your dreams, and you had everything go your way. Then you would construct everything in your favour, and then you would exist your 80 years, and everything would be great, everything would be fun.
You even sound like him when you're talking.
And then
you take his cadence. You take on board his cadence.
Yeah, well, it's quite extreme and great he is. But yeah, I try. I don't try, but I guess thanks. And he then says then you die, and then you have another chance, and you're like, well, that was fun, but now I want to see if I change one thing up and have one thing not go my way. Let's see what that looks like, and then you go through life and you experience that. And then you keep progressing, and each time you add one or two curveballs to your life and to your dream. And he says, and then you get here, and then you realize, how is this not a dream, where you're experiencing life through different curveballs that you've asked for, because a simple straight life would be boring. And then you think of that, and it makes you think again, sim theory, dream theory, whatever. Like just
same, right?
Who knows what we're experiencing right now?
That we're experiencing right now isn't the dream of another version of me that's asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thought that I had when I started to explore, this all kicked off for me when I started asking myself, what's the purpose of purpose? Mm-hmm. And another thought that I had was, well, what if when we're asleep, it serves as a downloading mechanism? Or an uploading mechanism to whatever it's one of those things of when you start to really open your mind and think, well, fuck, if I'm going to actually detach myself from everything that holds me down and keeps me shackled to the ideas that I was conditioned with, well, you've got to think pretty extreme. People whose minds work like ours, these things keep us fed. Mm-hmm. And so when I got to that, I thought, well, it kind of makes sense. Like when you think about a whole city, a whole country, a whole time zone goes to sleep around the same time. I think that the idea that that's to rejuvenate the body just seems such a linear kind of answer for why we sleep. Given that consciousness exists, given all the different things that you hear people talk about when they do DMT and the different entities that they experience. Have you done DMT before?
No.
Can't wait to do DMT.
Yeah. Get into it.
I really want to, just because I want to understand Like I've achieved that stuff. You and I both done Vipassana. Have you done it once? Or
yeah, just once. Yeah, this year.
Did you start to see those kinds of entities while you were in? Did you do a 10-day?
10-day, yeah.
I started to see. It got to about day 7, and I started to see different kinds of like deities, entities, or whatever, while I was experiencing it, and it felt like I was on a trip, and I've never tripped before.
Okay, yeah, yep. So no, I didn't get that. I didn't get the deity or the god, like that figure at all. I just got, again, similar things to that I got with psilocybin and mushrooms. You get like a whole...
I can't wait for psilocybin.
A whole, like, oneness, love, and acceptance are the 3 topics, the 3 main things that I've written about. And to touch on what you were just talking about, when... The last time that I... Trip? Yeah, so it was the same thing, and I wrote down here, brains equal servers, and not...
No shit!
So not necessarily that brains equal servers, but there is a server then that you upload to, or that it goes back to. So that could be happening, and that whole experience that you're experiencing during the day just goes and stores, right? And then the reason why that came up was because I must have had a blockage in my head where I was... we're competitive people. Humans are competitive, and we're fighting.
I missed that gene.
Pardon? Yeah.
I'm not a competitive person.
That's right. So that's the thing. If you get caught in it, you're competing against someone, but you're competing against someone assuming that things are limited, that something's limited, right?
Yeah.
So money, knowledge, space, everything's limited. But if you go off the universe constantly expanding, which it is, then there's room for everything, right?
You've given me the answer to something that I've been asking for maybe 10 years, because I've kept feeling like, because I haven't been in my adult life. When I was a kid, I played sports, but I was more that kind of person who, like, we always won. I mean, we'd lose every now and then, but I was a state netball player.
Okay, yeah.
And so, the kinds of sports that I participated in, I always did really well at them.
Yeah.
And I was never competing to win. I was just trying to be very good at creating a team and being a part of something that was successful.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because we wanted to destroy everybody else. And then I get into my business life and I'm like, well, I'm not competitive. And I just this moment started realizing why. It's because I believe everything is infinitesimal.
Yeah, it is.
It's one of those things that I don't believe that there's a finite amount of what you can have. Mm-hmm. People have challenged me on the idea that, like, there's enough business for everybody.
Well, if you look at the debt clock or the money clock, they're just spinning really fast. So there's, even if there's not enough money for everyone,
they'll make more.
There's infinite debt for everyone, though, and especially without the current system. So
I've never looked at it that way.
Exactly. So then, really, what are you worried about earning 1 or 2 million more or billion more when there's trillions getting ticked over constantly? And that's
no
only
one
if you
seems
look
to be
at
worried about it.
That's if you look at it with money. Worried about which way?
Well, it seems like I live in America, and in America, when you see these people, like, if I'm saying to somebody, I'm broke, or the cash flow is low, or something like that, I mean literally that's where I'm at, right? And at different stages of my life, like, you have, and then you don't have, and then you have, and then you don't have. It's about learning how to get a flow, right? But yeah, I see other people who tell me that they're broke, and then they go and they buy a huge, massive TV. I'm like, but you just said that you were broke. I'm like, and they'll say to you, credit cards, baby.
Yeah.
In America, they're constantly sending you things to say, increase your credit, increase your credit, increase your credit.
For sure, yeah.
And you just think, well, sorry, you
that's fine. That's fine.
People don't, from my experience, we're normalizing debt to the point of we're increasing people's risk appetite so that they're not afraid of the level of debt that they're going into. Mm-hmm. Which I think is, like, personally, I think that's dangerous, particularly for businesses that don't know how to rein that shit in. And like, people who aren't in business, we're heading to a recession, I think. But that debt clock is something that definitely, I'd never thought of it that way. Like, if there's not enough cash, that's fine. People will just, there's infinite debt. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a funny anecdote where they've got there's 3 banks in a small town back in the day, and they all had to constantly, back when it was cash, they used to transport money to each other. So then one goes to transfer to the bank, you'd have to go get the gold, move it across, or get the coins, move it across, and then they realised that every time they did that, it would take a lot of resources, time, and heavy, and it was annoying. So they realised that they invented the ledger system, and that's where they started doing things on paper. So they took all the gold that existed in the world, because it was finite, and they took it to one island when they all had a bank there, and they kept it locked up there. And then they kept transferring money like normal on paper, and as we do now with NetBank, and we just transfer money electronically, and they kept transferring money. And then one day the three owners, it was like Christmas, so they wanted to take their families to see all the gold that they had. So they took them, they took them to the island to show them, and this was like 3 years later, they opened up the vault and there was no money in there. And the guy goes, "What'd you do with the money?" He goes, "I fucking used it." He goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "We've been transferring money for 3 years with assuming that we had the money there." He goes, "Yeah, well, why don't you just keep doing that then? It's fine."
Wow.
We don't.
Who's going to know any different?
We don't. The cash is already below 5%. So we don't know any different. We are. So there's no such thing as money. It's just our construct and our processing and our understanding of it. And as Yuval talks about, it's our story that we've created to be able to communicate. So we're swapping value and time for dollars, and dollars is a scorecard technically. So if we can exist this way, and debt, even if debt goes up or down, it's
irrelevant. People's lives are still going to tick over.
Irrelevant.
People don't understand the system until it breaks, and then when it breaks, they
broken.
Don't understand.
It's broken. So yeah, technically, because we've got such big inequality, and we've got 1 billion people starving in the world.
Or
wealth inequality, and then starving kids, 1 billion kids starving in the world, or people.
Well, there's no reason that should be the case.
We've got 9 times the amount of food to feed everyone, but we're just feeding it to animals as a byproduct. So 16 times the amount of food that it takes to raise a kid, takes to raise a cow. So if you do the numbers, it's...
Is that a real number, 16?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
If you think about the size of a cow. Yeah. So it's like, we have all the answers. We know all this kind of stuff, but the stories that we're currently living by aren't serving us.
What do you think gets in the way?
The stories that we're living by, which is what religion's a story, he explains. Companies are a story. Money is a story. So all those stories that we've bought into and that we currently exist in without changing them is what is bringing us sort of down, and that's why we're stuck. And then that's where I originally got stuck on when I was on between businesses, deciding on what to do, and I went vegan. But I also looked into different economies, because obviously this isn't working and it's not equitable. And then you stumble upon like a resource-based economy, and then that's where you're using the best that you have for the best of everyone, not just for yourself. It's not just a greedy, selfish pursuit.
What's an example of a resource economy for
resource-based economy? You've got so much trees, you've got so much vegetation, and you share it equally across everyone in each city. So there will be smaller communities. And then if you've also got, if someone invents, like if you go to petrol and you fill up petrol, there's like 3, 4, or 5 different petrols.
Yep.
It's like, why isn't there just one, the best one for cars? There's not, because they need to water it down and add additives to it and everything that they need to do to get more out of it, to make more money. So it's not the best. So it's like, just if we evolved per each great breakthrough, we would be far, far, far more forward than we are. So money and that kind of exchange is keeping us back, but people think it's the only way for innovation to exist, but we know that that's not true.
In my experience, it's the noise that prevents us from seeing the simplicity of the solutions. And for me, becoming a minimalist really revealed so much of my bullshit, so much of my ego, so much of the stories that I had created in my own life to validate an existence that was such horse shit. Mm-hmm. Do you think that we're heading into, and we have been, the trajectory of humanity for millennia has been about moving towards complexity as a way of creating a veil against simplicity, a distraction?
Well, someone said once that humans do what they do because they get bored between eating, shitting and sleeping.
this goes back to my thing of what's the purpose of purpose.
Yeah, so it's just that we've just invented things to keep us busy.
You can stand up if you want.
No, I'm just changing. But yeah, just to keep us busy between things that we need to do naturally. But yeah, currently, it might change soon, but I'm of the opinion that we have all the answers to everything, and like stuff like psilocybin and stuff like that help you to see it. Like, we have all the answers, and the answers are simple. We've experienced them, because when you talk about like stories like the Mexican fisherman, have you heard that, with that guy?
Tell me.
There's a guy that goes to America. Clearly, it was an American story, but he goes on holidays with his family, and he goes to a Mexican island or on the coast of Mexico, and he sees a fisherman there, and he's like, "Hey man, like, you're a really good fisherman. You should sell your fish." He goes, "Why don't you buy a bigger boat?" And he's like, "I don't have money to buy a boat." He goes, "I'll lend you money to buy a bigger boat." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And he goes, "But why would I do that?" He goes, "Because then if you get a bigger boat, you can catch more fish." He goes, "Yeah, cool. And then what?" He goes, "Well, then you can catch more fish. You can sell more. You can make more money." He goes, "Yeah, and then what?" He goes, "Then you can sell your boat, buy a bigger boat, do it more." And then he goes, "Then what?" He goes, "Well, then you can sell your company off to someone, and then retire and live on the coastline for the rest of your life."
And he's like, "But that's what I'm fucking doing now."
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great analogy for it, I think, and a great story.
That's a wonderful analogy for it. Like, we just want bigger and bigger and bigger to end up where we are when we didn't have anything.
Where is that? What is our goal? Where is it? So if, like, you've got the Musks of the world who want to get to Mars, cool, and you've got other people that are just like,
hasn't he got 55,000 children too? Like, he's got lots of kids, doesn't he?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's his.
I mean, he said when he was on Rogan, and Rogan said, "Why are you doing this?" He said, I don't want to wake up in a world where I'm no longer hopeful about the future.
Yeah, that's it. That's cool. And that's what I was saying. So there's people like him that can do that, and there's other people that just want contentment and happiness and to feel okay every day. And then I feel like those answers we've got lying in front of us, and they're all fine. But like oneness, love, acceptance, and submitting, they're all part of it. And that's why we did the Vipassana. That's why people study. That's why people follow religion still, as to their detriment or to their whatever, to their advantage. We do, and we will continue, because we are all searching for something that we currently have.
I was in a conversation with a guy by the name of Shahram Shiva. He interprets Rumi's poetry.
Oh yeah.
And we were hanging out in Venice Beach one day, and he said, and I was telling him, I still don't understand how people are still into religion. And he said to me, "Why judge people on their way to truth?" Mm-hmm. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "You can't go straight from being born in any lifetime to having understanding without going through the things that you need to shed. And religion is a form of a rite of passage into no religion. And until you've experienced the idea of going through that transition, you don't know how to learn how to move beyond the things that hold you down." Yeah. And I thought, what a fucking great way of looking at it.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And that's I think where we trip ourselves up, because we're all as evolved as we've ever been on this planet. So we're all at the forefront of humanity, but it doesn't necessarily we've had the same growth of knowledge and the same upbringing until here, sort of, depending on where your consciousness is from, if you believe it's just from your family or if you believe it's outer. So it depends what kind of consciousness you have. So you could be having older or newer or younger thoughts, and that's why you could have a brother or sister and be so different to them, even though you're the same everything. You're the same history,
you're the same blood.
I have an identical
twin sister, and we're super different.
But then so that depends on where your consciousness is going and where you're allowing it to go, and what constructs you have that are limiting it. Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone's proven this or not, but the idea that all the matter that exists now has always existed since the Big Bang or whatever, right? Which my brain finds it difficult to encapsulate the idea of a Big Bang the more I open my mind. Because like Musk says, like if he could ask the simulator one question, it's what's beyond the sim,
Mm-hmm.
which is like asking, well, what came before the Big Bang?
Yeah.
Right? So I find it difficult to get my head around the infantile kind of idea of a Big Bang. To me, it would be better explained as somebody turned on the computer and allowed the construct to start running. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if we go with the theory that everything that exists now has always existed, and we look at history as like being one linear thing, you know, every civilization that existed was better than the civilization that came before it. That's the general common acceptance. Right, like as we move through the ages, we're more advanced than we ever have been.
Yeah.
Where my mind gets stuck is, well, if we've got everything, all the matter that existed now, that's always ever existed, how do we know that there wasn't a civilization that the Earth flattened that wasn't as advanced as us?
I don't. Is that what it means? Is that what they mean when they say that matters? The same amount of matter has always existed? Because I feel like it's not necessarily that. It's like, do you know? Is that what they mean?
Yeah. So what they're saying is like every carbon atom that exists today has always existed
within Earth.
Within the Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Within the entire universe.
Oh, within the universe. Yeah. Well, that's
so the universe is expanding. Yes, but every molecule that's on Earth is a molecule that exists and has always existed.
I don't buy into it. Like I don't think that's the case, because there's too much in and out of Earth. Like as in, there still happens where it comes in and out. Like we go.
It's so linear, right? Like
history's linear. Like history's linear, chronological.
But the idea of existence, the idea of and listen, anyone who thought that. This is one of the only humans I can have this kind of depth of conversation with, and this was never going to be a typical Map It Forward podcast.
I forgot we had people listening.
Do you remember when I said to you, you end up forgetting that people are going to listen to this? It's fun, but like I know that there are many people out there that love to listen to these kinds of conversations, which is why I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk about this shit. Because
and if you want to listen, just message us, and we can continue it. Or talk
totally.
Shit. It doesn't matter.
But the idea that I think you get to a point when you are an open-minded person that's like a voyager of dimensions and voyager of understanding and knowledge and ideas and things like that, where you kind of think, well, okay, if we look at sim theory and we look at genetics and evolution and we look at all of these different sciences that weave inside of each other, you can't ignore the idea that and you add ego to that soup, right? You can't ignore the idea that perhaps we're being masturbatory if we think we're the most supreme version of humans that have ever existed on this planet.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I like. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's something I'm battling with. But when people put pressure on us, like humans have to save the world. Humans have to do this. Humans have to rescue everything. Like we need to continue. Musk wants us to go to Mars because he thinks humans are so superior that we should continue. But then
is that his reason? Do you think?
Well, he doesn't want to wake up and not have hope. So he thinks that he's important enough for that to matter, right? We do. So just because we think doesn't mean it's correct. So then I'll look at that, and sometimes it's just like, who said that we were supposed to keep Earth going? And we weren't supposed to just be another dinosaur race? Or then if you look at sim theory, who knows? Who said that we were supposed to be the Earth out of all of them that won? And then you can sort of relax.
I never thought about it that way. We were the version of Earth that ended up winning.
Well, you could be.
In amongst all of the versions that are happening, infinitesimal versions that are going on in all the different sims.
Or if we didn't create money and we lived off a resource-based economy where the most important innovation progressed, and then we worked off that, then we could be billions of years behind the other sim.
Depending on what you call behind, right?
Well, advancement. Well, that's the thing, in the trajectory that we're going. So that's right. So we've advanced and we've taken long because of, say, stuff that's kept us back. Like, how long have we used gas guzzling cars for, right? And now they invented electric cars in the 20s, and then that was suppressed, and now they've come out again. And then that's, say, for example, to me, time that could have been used to advance the next and the next and the next, and we'd be like,
because we chose to focus on this one particular thing,
money or debt or whatever. Yeah, so that was the way we measured, and
as opposed to consciousness.
Jobs were important, whereas not usefulness. So then when you look into Jacques Fresco and like the resource-based economy, it's really interesting how things could exist. It's far from what people understand and what currently is, so it probably won't come to fruition, but it's amazing to think that could exist somewhere, and maybe that's existing in another sim.
Do you think people's autopilot is what stops them from considering shifting to a resource-based economy?
So have you heard, Tim Urban, Wait But Why podcast?
No.
So he does Wait But Why. You should read that. But it's every few months. He just releases a really, really long form. It's probably a short book, but essay, blog post. And he explains it really well because he did a lot of research into Musk, and people ask, how's Elon Musk able to think like this, and how's he able to do these things if people didn't do it before him, as people that are as innovative as him do. And he explains it as the chef and the cook. So if there's people that you're just talking about that go about on autopilot, he considers them cooks. So they'll get a recipe and they'll do the recipe. They'll construct the dish. And people like Musk are chefs, and they go back to first principles, and they're like, all right, cool, what's the best way we currently have available to us to create a car? Or what should we be doing if we're going to go look at things from first principles? And they're called chefs because they will write the recipes, and they will change and add things and then experiment until they've got it just right. So I think it's important for us to take the chef's mindset, but a lot of people just aren't built like that. And then you get the cook. So I think it's just the whole chef-cook mentality. If there's not enough chefs, then we're going to continue doing things the way we are. And then when you get a chef, then they're going to think things differently. And that's why someone invented veganism. That's why someone invented electric cars, electricity.
Isn't that crazy?
Everything.
The idea of inventing veganism.
Yeah, or just naming it. Yeah, naming it, I guess.
Do you think that a society could exist with 90% chefs and 10% cooks?
Yeah, I think it could if it was more resource based rather than competition and then one against the other, job sort of based.
Tell me how.
Well, you'll be working together. So then when that takes us full circle to like people's experiences on drugs that they have. What are they called? On
DMT.
Yeah. So anyway, those experiences all take us back to one.
On psychedelics.
On psychedelics. Sorry, that takes us back to one thing. That's oneness and the truth and the whole and the God. And
because everybody experiences that.
Well, like more often than not, if you have a good experience, that's what you're going to experience, and you're going to feel more connected to anyone than you ever have. And
does it continue after? Because I've never had the experience. So once you finish the trip, do you still feel that connection for some time afterwards?
You do, because it's like a memory.
Okay.
You keep reliving it, and then
is it a physiological experience as well? Is there a difference in the way that you move, the way that you physically feel afterwards?
No, I wouldn't say so. Not for me, but that's mine a pretty basic entry level, so I wouldn't say so. But the fact that everyone experiences it the same, the fact that people when you meditate for long periods of time experience that kind of oneness and love and acceptance, the fact that that's actually easier than hate and a lot less of the opposite. So it's just much simpler to love and to submit and to be vulnerable and to relinquish control. It all makes sense. So if we are pitted against each other, then it's gonna take a lot longer, and that's what we're currently doing.
It's a mechanism of avoidance. It's a distraction. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a distraction from the simplicity of connectedness and oneness and and all of the actual shit that matters.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If we all work together, we could accomplish anything we wanted to, right? But then whose dream is more important than the next? And I think that's where we've gotten stuck, because it's like, all right, well, whoever's got the most money, it's their dream that's important next, because then they can buy security to secure them, and then everyone else works for them.
And because everybody's trying to be that person, because they want, that's the ego, right?
Well, they've just got no choice. At the moment, in our current system, you have to do what they want.
You look at things like Instagram.
If you choose to go
right,
within,
everyone's got it, technically has an equal playing field to get to the top of Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But people look at other people, and we experience it in the coffee industry. People seem to want to be like the Insta famous. A lot of people want to be around people who are Insta famous.
Yeah, cooks.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's what I mean by, can we live in a society today, the way our construct exists today? I mean, I'd love to live in a society that was 100% chefs,
Mm-hmm.
because then there'd be many, many people I could have these conversations with.
We probably would stop talking because we'd have invented something better. Because language is so cumbersome, and we
Right.
can't even get a message across sometimes. So it's just
Well, that's
about
the Neuralink
energies,
that-
right? Yeah.
That
So then, yeah,
must
that's right. It
come
would be. It would be. That's true. It would be. It's
but
interesting.
we
And
need
I think
to
we are.
disassociate from our
But
current constructs.
We also all are. I think we have the capacity to be chefs. But
It's
we
a
just
conscious choice to disconnect from being a cook versus being a chef.
get. And it's
Right?
Yeah.
For me, that's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah.
You can, look, we were saying this yesterday, wouldn't it be nice to be as ignorant as we used to be? And as naive as we used to be?
Maybe we still are. Yeah.
Well, in relation
I know
to
what
the
you're saying.
future
Yeah, I
versions
agree,
of
yeah,
ourselves,
yeah.
but like I look at the person I was before my Saturn's return, before I was 28, and I think, you know, she fucking thought she knew so much,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew so much less than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I stepped into the idea, well, I'm just going to forever be in an infinite state of learning and receiving and growing and whatnot, was when I made a conscious decision to become a chef versus what I was, which is a cook, to use your analogy.
Yeah. Tim Urban's. Yeah.
Tim Urban's analogy.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of those moments of, I don't think you can trip into being a chef. I don't think people are...
Well, he doesn't believe so either. He thinks that people are born either a chef or a cook. So,
Oh, right.
yeah, it just depends on the person, and depends on what your current environment is like, either if it's nurturing or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely believe, though, that people can transition from being a cook to being a chef. Like, this conversation that we're having is going to spark people thinking about, well, am I a chef or am I a cook? And
Well, I disagree there, because I think it's just they were born a chef and then distracted because of their environment and their surroundings. So if you choose never to leave your family and they're abusive and they direct you and make you go a certain way, then you're going to be a cook because you're following them. But then if once you get a glimmer of hope and you're like, oh, fuck, maybe I'm going to go, maybe this is truer to me, and you have the time to stop and think and decide on what you actually want to do, and that resonates, then you go back to your path of creating.
I guess that another way of looking at that is like when people say, well, you know, I woke up. You know, for me, I distinctly remember that time in my life when I woke up, and I remember having that conversation, and this was why I got divorced.
Yeah.
Was because I realised I was living a life that didn't fit me, and I was trying to tick all the boxes
and it didn't work.
live a safe life. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, I'm like, Nico, I don't think I'm being real. I don't think I'm meant to live this kind of a life. I think I have to go and find what the fuck I am. And like the wog guilt that comes with that, you know, and the religious guilt if you've made these promises and you've committed to this kind of a life, and then what you've decided to do is be what you think is selfish and go and explore. Like what an absolutely selfish endeavor to go on and say, from an evolutionary perspective as well as like from a humanistic perspective, to say, well, I've chosen I'm not going to have children. I'm going to let go of the life I'd made a bunch of promises in, and I want to go and explore what my mind is. I want to understand what my soul is. I want to understand if a soul is real. I want to understand all of the potentiality of life. I'm going to disassociate myself from my cultural status, my cultural beliefs, my moralistic beliefs, my religious beliefs, anything like that. I'm starting again and figuring it all out for who I am. And that, at the time, I was too naive of understanding what that really meant to understand how fucking terrified I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's now
it is terrifying,
that I look back at it and think, well, I looked at it and thought I was excited by it. Like, I'm going on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a load of shit. That was my ego talking, like, okay, I'm about to do this thing.
Yeah.
And now I realize it wasn't excitement, it was a way of masking terror. Because once you lose your anchorage to everything that defines you, you're free falling. And you're waking up into a world where you're saying, I don't want to be a follower. I don't want to be a cook. I want to be a chef, and I have no fucking idea how to do that. How do I find the rhythm of asking all the questions that are going on in my mind, and is everyone going to think I'm a fucking moron? And how do I get to the point of being okay with everyone thinking that I'm a fucking moron?
Like faking it till you make it?
Well, it wasn't even that. It was this thing of, I kept wondering why I never fit in anyway. I kept wondering, like, where are my people? Am I the only person that thinks like this? You know, and then you live behind this like ego veil of like, perhaps like some of us are just born wiser than everybody else. And it's like, shut the fuck up. What bullshit is this, Lee? This, I'm born wiser than No, I was just born more curious than most. And that's what tended me towards the idea of what he calls the chef. But it's terrifying to be that in amongst cooks. It shouldn't be terrifying.
See, it's I personally I don't think it wasn't sort of. It's not terrifying. It's a little more lonely, if anything. Like, and then you've got to try. That's the. Let
me put it this way.
For me, but
for me, being a chef around other chefs is invigorating.
Yeah.
Being a chef around other cooks is terrifying, because I feel like I have to be accommodated as an empath, and I'm sure there's self-worth issues there and all that kind of stuff, but being a chef around a sea of cooks is one of those things of, well, I just want to be me. Like, I'm constantly seeking other chefs so I don't have to pretend that I'm a cook. Yeah.
And you don't want to be... You're stuck there because you're scared of being rejected.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like.
So that's why we become people pleasers, because we're scared of of rejection. Yeah.
And we're invalidated constantly through our lives, right?
Not invalidated, just not validated sometimes. You know what I mean?
No,
that's the thing.
I was invalidated. Being raised in the Arab culture and as a woman, your existence as a chef, and that's the term we're using for all intents and purposes, but the being invalidated as a chef because only men can take that position in society. Yeah, you're invalidated as somebody who could be a thought leader. You're invalidated as someone who has innovative ideas. Just by being born with a vagina.
Well, as Russell Brand says, out of the wrong vagina.
Out of the wrong vagina.
We weren't born out of like the Queen's vagina, say.
Right.
Yeah.
But even, I mean, I wonder. Yeah, no, you're right. Like the Queen, if she wants to be a chef, nobody's going to question if she's going to be a chef.
Well, yeah, she is. That's the.
Whereas I feel like
to it.
I had to fight. And who knows what the fuck I was actually fighting. And I'm constantly like checking my ego with regards to that. It's like, listen, like I don't think anyone gives any fucks whether you're a chef or a cook anymore. So stop being attached to that story.
Yeah. just helps you navigate. That concept's supposed to help you navigate through life, to understand where you're at, I guess.
Right.
Not as your story to everyone.
But being attached to the history of needing to struggle through to validate myself as a chef, when everyone else wanted, other people around me, the influential people around me, the authoritarian figures that formulated a part of the beginning of my story were telling me, who the fuck do you think you are to think you're a chef? You're just a cook.
Yeah.
And me saying, no, but I'm not. Like, I swear, like, if you just gave me a minute to understand, I have to keep reminding myself that other people are listening.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, shit, this is actually a conversation James and I would typically have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, typically we have, yeah.
And then I'm like, shit, people are hearing what we're saying. But, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, for sure. That's why you just like, I quit. That's what happened. It's like, you left that kitchen, and then you need to go and continue. And that's just a part of it, I guess. Tradition, culture, indoctrination, just like people's their journey to truth, as that guy said as well. So that's theirs, but that's not yours. And just because you're born into that family doesn't mean you have to stay with that family forever. Yeah. And that's what happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's happened to me. It's one of those things of, well, I don't fit there, and I'm not. I challenge too much, and because I challenge too much, I create far too much cognitive dissonance within that construct to be accepted there anymore.
Yeah.
So as the chef in a kitchen filled with cooks that only want to be cooks, they say, get the fuck out of this kitchen, there's no place for you.
Yeah, and start again.
And that's terrifying.
It's yeah.
It was really terrifying.
Yeah, I get that for sure. It'd be really hard, and I think that's why I guess we go back to people that have their friends in high school, because it's just too terrifying to leave and still hang out with the same people and do the same sort of things because it's just comfortable and easy. But there's some types of minds that just don't stop, and you can't help that to want to pursue.
I'm constantly saying to people, do the hard shit.
It's each to their own. It's hard. You can't make everyone do it.
No, but I encourage people.
Yeah, of course.
Because
you try your hardest,
you don't have to do extremely hard shit, but do stuff that challenges you.
Yeah, of course. That's agreed.
But people don't necessarily get the importance of that. They think that, well, why would you do the hard shit when you could always do the easy shit?
That's just like
that's why people keep eating meat.
Go to the gym, yeah, exactly. Or going to the gym, it's like when you sweat and you work hard, you get reward. When you don't sweat and you do it easy, you don't get any rewards for it. It happens with everything in life.
You wrote God and Devil.
Down there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just, so it's, when we're talking about Yuval, he brings up the concept of religion, when we're talking about religion.
Yeah.
And he said that a lot of people that, when you think about it, if you believe in God and the devil, which most people often do that, they believe in religion, then you're believing in two gods. And you're no longer believing in one God, you're believing two that exist, that have equal power. They have equal power over you. Because if the devil can make you do something, that means he's stronger than the devil. And sometimes, and then you'll get my grandmother arguing with you that it's just because he's allowed us to make our decisions. But then it goes around in circles with the just God, and then the devil that's stronger than him. So if the devil's stronger and we're enacting evils in the world, so technically the devil's stronger than God. So that argument.
Do you believe in that construct of God and
evil? No, not me personally. No.
No.
That's just that was his. That's why I wrote it, because we were talking about Yuval and his. It's a really interesting, because it's another story about religions and duality and all that. Yeah.
Do you, when you look at the idea of like why we have a purpose, right? Like we operate in lives where we've got businesses, we employ people, we have friends, we do things, we engage in a form of the construct, right? And then on the other side of that, we have these intense existential thought processes that are pretty much running the majority of the time while we're operating in this other construct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find it challenging to coexist in those two spaces?
How so? Like,
when you look at the idea of purpose,
yeah,
right?
for like in purpose in terms of what? Which purpose?
The idea of purpose.
For exactly. So then it just depends if which story we believe, which in life. If you believe that business is and money is the ultimate purpose, or if success or whatever is the ultimate purpose, that's different. And if your purpose is to exist and experience every moment harmoniously and content, then your purpose is just the moment as well. So it's hard to. There still is the idea of purpose is still has its.
Do you get to a point like in a
categories.
business, right? Like, we're intense thinkers. And so you'll be thinking about something, then you'll engage in a business practice. And, someone decides not to turn up to work time after time after time. And, they become really hard to deal with. How does that formulate into the scope of realigning the difference between the intense thought processes and that you're seeking, the existence that you're seeking, the peace, the love, the oneness that you're seeking, versus detaching from the story that's happening and playing out in the construct that is the business?
Well, firstly, I haven't had a difficult employee like that before.
You do have a dream team.
So that's hard for me. And then, like, both times I've been in business, I haven't really had that. Maybe because I'm a people pleaser. That's maybe the problem. So, like, it's for me, that's, I don't know, it's a tricky question because everyone, as we said before, everyone's on their way to their own truth. So if I've got someone that's not buying into my truth or doesn't agree with me, that's got to be fine, and you've got to be okay with that. You can't have control over everyone. You've only got control over yourself. So if you're going to let that affect you, then you're going to get nowhere. So that's maybe why I haven't had anyone that's been that troublesome.
Mm-hmm. You're not a pushover though, James. You're not someone who...
Maybe I am.
Do you think that you're a people pleaser?
I in some way or another, yeah, I am. Like, I often have fear of failure and rejection. So when you have that, then you'll people please to an extent, which I've been looking into recently. It's called rejection sensitive dysphoria. And a lot of us have that rejection sensitive dysphoria. So it's like when you want to avoid rejection and failure so much that you'll just do okay, that you'll do what you'll make people happy. You'll become people pleaser.
What's it called again? Rejection
sensitive dysphoria.
Sensitive dysphoria.
Yeah, it's linked to ADHD. So about a month ago, I told you I was diagnosed with ADHD, which I didn't know for 32 years.
And that was a big relief for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a big relief, because when you're talking about your brain jumping and your ideas and chasing those thoughts, now it helps me understand that not everyone's brain operates at the same speed, and I've also got a high processing speed. So when we're talking about stuff, I might be 10 steps down the road when someone will only be 2. So now I've got an understanding of why, and then you just like when you have short or long legs, you sort of cater to that ability of yours. So for me, in terms of people pleasing, sometimes I'll do that, and then that's, I think, when in a way it's good for business, because if you want to be successful in business, you need to please a lot of people, and if you're able to please enough, you have a successful business. So with Shift, when I was conceptualizing and changing the idea over and over, what I finally landed on was something that clearly, judging by the last 2 years, makes a lot of people happy. So that's when it could work to your advantage. Whereas if you're just like people pleasing, in a sort of a not as advantageous way, then you're just
in
gonna,
a destructive kind of way.
Yeah, then you're just
self-deprecating kind of.
Yeah, you're just gonna end up at home all the time and not being able to leave the house because you can't please anyone. So, I guess you could use that as a positive way in this instance.
I really like that. The idea that it's almost like a marketing tool.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. I think it's interesting because I left uni doing marketing because it wasn't challenging enough. So, and also only like 5% of people with ADHD complete university degrees. So that's also
because you're bored,
I'm a statistic. Right? Yeah, bored. Yeah, it's too slow, and we just can't. Not even bored. You can't focus. You can hyper focus on topics, and then you can't focus as well. So the whole name and understanding of ADHD is wrong and incorrect, and someone needs to rename it soon. Like they've renamed a lot of disorders and a lot of mental health issues recently. So that's got to be next because it's just like a ridiculous name.
What's wrong with it?
Well, you can have attention deficit. You can have a hyper focus. You can have an over attention problem as well.
And all of that gets lumped into one?
Well, yeah. There's three. There's like inattention, hyperactivity, and then a combined type.
Yeah.
So I've got both.
Okay.
Like I've got the combined type. Sorry. Other kids that you see on the news on the current affair are usually hyperactive, and then the people with inattention can't sit and learn in class, so then they often get left behind, and that's why they get picked up in school because they're not doing well. Whereas when you scrape by or when you do okay, then there's a lot of adult diagnosed ADHD people because you've developed the right coping mechanisms, or your environment was cushy and perfect for you to get through, and for many reasons there's heaps. So yeah, it's a thing. It exists. I just realised, and there's a lot of symptoms to it, but you will know everyone like will.i.am, Justin Timberlake. It's just like two celebrities that we know of to help. Yeah, Kanye, to help you explain that people do have, and you still can be high functioning. And
well, you're an example of that.
Thanks. Yeah, next to Kanye, that's great. Okay. Yeah, I'll take it. Fuck.
He's got a lot of mental illness that's going on with that too, right?
Well, that's the thing. That it's related to a lot of other things, like RSD, like rejection sensitive dysphoria. There's a lot of emotional things, a lot of emotion regulation that comes into it that
I experienced a lot of that.
They took out in the 70s out of the DSM, out of the journal. So taking that out of the definition of ADHD was really not good for it, but there's people working to try to get it back in so people can understand it better, and it can not be just about hyperactive kids or hyperactive people. It's people that just have different dopamine levels that need to be changed or fixed.
The high processing thing you and I have in common.
Oh, really?
But,
yeah.
I'm in the top 0.1 percentile band of processing. Did that make 100% sense to you? Like, was it a great penny dropping, like, finally I understand why I'm so different? I always wondered, like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. Well, I like the way it made sense was at school I always rationalised not doing as well because the people that did do well were really good memorisers, and they had patience to just memorise a textbook the fuck out of it. So
we could understand the depths of the concepts.
Well, then you'd go off on tangents.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Physics
there.
was a mind fuck for me for that reason. People would present an idea and they'd present the whole idea, and I'm like, no, but you know that first little part of it?
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm still there.
Right. Because I've gone so deep into that first little part.
Exactly.
And people are like, why can't you keep up? I'm like, what do you mean I can't keep up?
Yeah.
Like, I've gone so deep into the first part of it and explored the fuck out of that in the time that you said the sentence of what. And so their misconception, and I kept wondering, like, what's wrong with me? And for me, my thing was typically in the realm of emotional intelligence, as opposed to a lot of the intellectual intelligence. It's not that I'm not intellectually intelligent, it's that where my deliciousness lives, like that the part of, do you want some more water for that?
We'll get some, it's fine.
There. For me, the idea of exploring emotional intelligence and consciousness and thought explorations, as opposed to necessarily the idea of intellectual intelligence, just seemed so much more delicious to me. And so I would go on these voyages and these like vision quests within myself of this stuff, and people would be like, "You're such a daydreamer, Lee."
Oh yeah.
Or like, "You're so intense." I'm like, what the fuck's wrong with me? How come I'm like this and other people aren't like this?
You're describing a lot of symptoms of ADHD, so that's really interesting.
Is ADHD? But I can focus. That's the other.
Yeah, but you can, like you just explained, hyperfocus. Like you get stuck on one detail, and we delve the shit out of it. So that's another way. And then obviously being the intense. So then the emotion regulation, there's intensity. So sometimes you don't get that 2 or 3 seconds to react like the neurotypical brains do, and you just react, and you get called intense a lot, or you're just too much. So yeah, that was just funny. A funny little touch with the depends.
Well, it just depends. Like it wouldn't surprise me if I am.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm not surprised now that I've only been a month, 2 months into this exploration, and I'm hearing people getting diagnosed at 55. So
really,
yeah, you can imagine how hard their lives were, not having an understanding of their brain, and like physical, your physicalness you can understand because you can see it and you experience it, whereas stuff like that's unseen. You don't know what's going on, even though it's part of your physical body. You can't see it, so you don't know what you're missing or what you've got.
We experience in our industry, I see so many people with mental illnesses, depression, anxiety, etc., etc., etc. And I often wonder how much of it is as a result of misdiagnosed things like that.
Well, I think it's a combination of everything. Like
yeah.
Like did you read Lost Connections by Johan Harari?
I read some of it, not all of it.
So he explains nine reasons for disconnection, which causes depression and anxiety. Yep. So
he talked about a lot of that on Rogan and through the
he would
TED
have gone
through
the book. Yeah, he would have gone through the book. That's all. Like he did so much. You do so much research for a fucking book. You might as well talk about it for 10 years. Like
right.
what it took him that long to write.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's 9 reasons why most people get depressed and anxious. And if you're talking about in business and in the industry, one of them is the actual topic called disconnection to a safe future, a safe and sustainable future. So in the hospitality industry, most people are probably on an hourly wage. They're not even on a salary.
Yeah.
So that for people like freelancers or baristas or people that are in the hospitality industry or any industry that don't have that annual leave to look forward to, or that career or that job, or knowing that they've, say for example, even if you want to get rid of someone, it takes more than 4 weeks. So they didn't even have that to help them feel secure in the moment. They're constantly wondering if they're going to get enough shifts, if the hours are going to drop, if the boss changes his mind, yada yada yada. So it's a tough one. I experienced it my whole life, and I experience it now even because entrepreneurs and business people fall into that category as well, because you don't know, you're not on a salary that you know how much you're going to make every single week.
Never.
Yeah.
It's accepting stepping off the ledge and having no idea when you're going to float, when you're going to fall, when you're going to find the solid ground. Like it's the acceptance of inevitability.
That's right. It is, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't lead to depression, and anxiety, and mental health issues. It does for me, because that's what Johan's talking about there, and that's what's important for us to identify and to realize. And then when I look at others that are a lot more content than I, they might be earning a lot less than me, a lot more than me, but they're content because they have that security in relationships is another one, and then obviously with their future, with their financial future. So that's important and worth us talking about, which is hopefully we can, like what Map It Forward does, and then what we talk about with Jamie on the weekend connects. Because,
are you excited about that?
Yeah, I want to learn. Like I love learning, so it's good to submit and just see what you guys have got prepared for us. It's
people often wonder, like people have been asking me, like, what is assertiveness? Why are you focusing on assertiveness? What's the point? Like, why does the industry care? And why do I need it? And my thing is, like, this is one of those things that you don't know that you need until you've been exposed to it, if you don't understand what assertiveness is.
I think we just talked about a good reason there, because a lot of people, the reason why I read his book was because I was going through a rough, the Lost Connections, and I'd read his Chasing the Screen book, and then it got to this, so I'm like, I'll read it, see what it's about, because I feel like I was experiencing some symptoms of both. And then when you read the book and you understand it and you feel it, you realize that people walk around saying, "Oh, I'm anxious, I'm uptight," and then you'll give them like they'll believe it's because of one thing, but it could be because of another one or two things. It could be because of anything. And in this instance, it could be because of the work security, say.
Yeah.
It could be a numerous amount of things. It could be childhood abuse, could be anything. But in what we have control of, it could be work. And I think it's really important for people to notice and to be aware of, and to think about for themselves and for their family and for their staff and themselves if you own your own business as well.
You're a parent. Is the idea of that voyage of being a parent and the responsibility of that, does that add, is it the same kind of stress as being responsible for a business, or is it a completely different kind of stress?
No, it's definitely different. It's definitely different. It's I'm still acclimatizing. I'm still finding my feet.
But that's a dude thing, right? Like
no,
typically,
I wouldn't say so. No. Because not from my research anyway. It's just like a thing.
Don't fathers typically find it more hard to acclimate?
Postnatal depression is more prevalent in women, in mothers, for numerous amount of reasons, and then it's 10% of men hit postnatal depression as well. But not that you have to go to postnatal depression to be able to find it hard. Everyone finds it hard.
Yeah.
But the thing with men is that I experienced is it's not the changing. It's totally different to what the woman experiences. The women has like physical and physiological changes, and then the pressure of being the mother and then breastfeeding. There's a lot there as well. But for men, you are now pretty much third on that ladder. So
it's a form of rejection, right?
If you don't take care of yourself, then people are too busy in the first 2 years to take care of you as well. So you got to watch that. There's also the pressure of an income, and like I said, if you don't have a secure income, like a salary, which is probably the most secure for a lot of people, no matter how high or low it is, it's secure. You know what you're going to get. Then you feel lost, and you feel like you have to continue to earn and provide whatever that is, in whatever essence that is, provide. So then, while you're not providing, or when you're not providing enough, then you feel that hardship. So men go through a different range of emotions, and that's why it's hard for them as compared to women.
Because of that pressure as well.
Yeah, there's a difference. Yeah, different set of pressures. Yeah. It
was really interesting. I was saying to Jamie a few months ago, when I was raised believing I would get married and I would live a life with a husband and we would create this life together, etc., etc. And it didn't hit me until like the last year or so that I've taken on the role of what a husband would have for me.
Oh yeah. Okay,
in the sense that, so I never considered that I would, and I know this sounds fucking ridiculous, but when you're raised with the idea that you're going to either be a part of a team or you're going to have someone who you're totally dependent on, right? Mm-hmm. I wonder, for me, it never became a part of my integrated sense of self, in that I am the breadwinner for me now. Even though I have been this whole time, but this idea that I am taking on board the typical weird like space that I'd left for a man providing for me as like a deep cultural conditioning. And I came to realize like, fuck, that pressure that we as a society put on men has to be debilitating for so many of men.
Yeah.
It's why the suicide rate is so high.
Suicide rate, yeah, it's higher in men, and also if you go to countries like Korea and Japan, it's extremely higher. It's a lot higher.
For this same reason? Yeah,
for the provider income sort of job pressures, yeah. It's really, really high.
And do you think that plays a role in, you know, how you were talking about this thing in our industry that's happening with people who don't necessarily end up on salary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's a part of the reason why we've struggled so much to gain steam as this is a profession rather than a job? Because a lot of men can't see a sustainable long-term convergence between having an hourly rate job and maintaining the role of provider?
Yeah, I guess so. It makes complete sense. When I first became a dad, for those reasons, I took a salary job, which obviously I thank my boss for, but I'm sorry that I did that. He experienced my full force, but it was something that I fought because I was not that kind of person, but I took that because it was secure, and it wasn't in line.
Was that instinctual? Like the need to do that? Was that like a primal kind of,
I've
got to get safe straight away?
Yeah, I was like, coffee, salary, what can I do? And then I took that job, which was totally opposite of what I should have done. But this is also because Christine and I hadn't planned to have a baby, and we also hadn't saved, and I was between businesses at that stage. So it was a really complex time. So I just took a salary thinking that's what you do and that's what you should do because of that whole security, which I did have. But then I wasn't meeting my other needs, and that they're
the
also
sense of self.
They're
like
also important. Just creating, not consuming, and sort of just a lot of other needs, I guess. So then after that took me 12 months, and then got out of that, and then I was just content with less, and then started a business so I could just have enough, and then wherever that took me, but I was okay with less for my own sanity. So whereas a lot of people don't have that luxury as well, like I knew I had my family behind me. We actually lived at our parents' house for a year and a half to sort of take that off. A lot of people can't do that, so you can never get out of that.
5?
3.5.
Yeah. Fuck.
So if you can't get out of that loop, then you're screwed. And then if you're also paying rent, and then you can't just get out of a job without saving for a long time, which is hard to also save. So I had to take advantage of that luxury for myself, and I did, and then here we are. So yeah, it's hard for men, definitely because coffee is such a strong male industry. I think if you can't see a 20-30 year career, which you can't really show me anyone that has had it because it's so new, then except for the top 1%, say, then why wouldn't you leave and use your talents elsewhere
and go find a real job?
Use your talents elsewhere, or like start entrepreneurship, which is technically the same thing for security wise, but we don't realize it at the time.
That's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the idea that you go on the entrepreneurial endeavor to create some sort of security for yourself, but what you're really doing is guaranteeing yourself a below minimum wage job.
And insecurity.
Insecurity.
And a lot of
anxiety, depression,
constant stress, like not being able to leave, not being able to switch off, which is even harder for someone with ADHD, say, but it's hard for everyone, all entrepreneurs. So
is it harder, or does it indulge you? Because both the industries for me grabbed me for those reasons. So both working for myself and then coffee and cafes, because they're so fast-paced, so many moving parts. There's so much to be able to worry about, which keeps my mind busy. That gives your brain a nice
something
hum.
Something to chew on.
Yeah.
And then if that was a lot simpler, like working a desk job, it's like that was, to me, it didn't make sense. That's why I had to leave university. So it was like, well, I can't do that. So and then trying to work for someone in that industry still didn't make sense, because
you got their pace.
Operate at different speeds, different ideas, and you obviously want to focus on some stuff and not on other stuff. And then when you tailor into that, making a change in the world and like making a difference, then you have to step out on your own and do it.
Talking about making a change in the world, where do you see the role of what Shift is trying to do in your small corner of the world? What's the idea of, you open a plant-based business. You're not just a cafe, although you are a great cafe that I love coming to every time I come to Sydney.
Thanks, yeah.
And thank you for what you do for representing stuff that we believe in.
Yeah.
Where does your relationship between consciousness and minimalism and business expansion go? How does all of that converge?
Well, minimalism isn't something I spoke about. You've spoken about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I believe in the concepts, and I'm trying to push for it at home. But the first day we opened Shift, and obviously the last business, but that was before I was as conscious as I am now, I realised that it's super fucking difficult to to run a bricks and mortar business and be a minimalist.
You're right.
It's pretty much, like you can be an essentialist, but you're going to still have a lot of shit and a lot of waste.
What's essentialism?
It's
Similar?
Yeah, similar. Similar construct, and I think minimalism has taken a little bit more prevalence now and more media because it makes more sense. But there was a book written a while ago, Essentialism. I forgot what the author's name was, and that was just about having the things that are essential to you and to live a good life.
All right.
Maybe it wasn't as restrictive as like minimalism, where people think you need to own nothing, which is not even the case. You don't need to. But yeah, so I think that's sort of separate for business. I've obviously thought of ways to go down that path, but I think with Shift, it's just, if I could get out of my own way, it'd be a lot better.
What do you mean?
Like just this whole personal journey that I've gone through in the last 2-3 years is important to me, and the family journey as well is important. So you want to not let that fall by the wayside just because you're trying to make a difference in the world.
You go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, and So that's what I mean. If that was different, then it could be different. But for Shift, it's like, obviously, like you said, everyone thinks it's a cafe. You'll get people like Broadsheet or Urbanlist who will write something thinking, oh, let's review this cafe, or let's get a blogger in and they'll review the cafe. But
it's so much more than that.
To me, it's a vegan company. It's there, and at the moment, I explain to people the current vehicle is a cafe, because when you go vegan, the majority of what you're changing is what you eat, because it's 3 times a day for the rest of your life. So it's important for there to be a place that's nurturing of that. So by being a vegan company, we have a group of vegans that help people make the shift, and then it just depends on what your role is in that company. Just like if you took a job for marketing in a company, you would play that role out. So that's the idea, the concept for me. It's more of a resource rather than a cafe. So if there was more resources of that, and if I had more funds, I would be able to make bigger versions of it and more prevalent, so that way people would have access to that resource and not just have to wait online, because you can do all you want online, but if you walk into a shop, you're usually going to have conflicting data there, and you're going to be confused, so you're probably going to go with what's comfortable and what you've always gone for. Whereas if you walked into Shift, then you've got the vegan options, the cruelty-free options, and then you can make those and you can test those out, you can experience those, and you can move on from there.
How do you differentiate between vegan and cruelty-free? Is it the same? I don't technically. It's just like in makeup and in some industries, it's more if you test on animals or if you don't test on animals, or if you're vegan. But yeah, generally for me, being vegan is trying to live as cruelty-free life as you can, which is impossible to be perfect. There's no zero-sum game. No one's perfect. It's just day to day doing the best thing you can and making the best choices you can for the betterment of everyone around you, which includes animals. That's that. And then when people go plant-based and they stick to plant-based, that's fine, but that's because they're focused on themselves and health, which is great because you're not eating animals. So then there's just a few different definitions and ideas, concepts. Just like with anything we've talked about today, it's all perspective. It's a perspective you take from it, right?
Yeah. Well, not really. To me, if you've got the option to choose between a vegan product and a non-vegan product, you choose the vegan product if you're vegan. If you're plant-based, you might choose the non-vegan product. So it's just sort of the way you see the way.
Are you differentiating between vegan and plant-based?
Yeah, as you asked. Yeah, didn't you just ask?
Well, yeah. No, between vegan and cruelty-free, or plant-based and cruelty-free.
Okay, yeah.
Are they the
Yeah. It depends. Cruelty-free you can put into humans with that, right, and the earth.
Oh, right.
So then, if you're talking about cacao, then you're in trouble there. So
vanilla bean.
Yeah. So we use Mork, and Mork obviously their cacao is like ethically sourced and transparent, whereas the blood cacao that you'd get through Cadbury isn't sustainably sourced, and there's a lot of child.
Do they call it blood cacao?
In the industry, they do, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
I'm down.
Right?
I get it.
Like
it makes sense now that you say it.
And that's the thing,
coffee the same.
Even with coffee, same. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So if you chase it far enough and you care enough and you see the human on the other side of the transaction, then you probably want to do a bit better. So for veganism, it's like seeing the animal on the other side of the transaction. And that transaction is going to the supermarket and buying something in a plastic wrap as opposed to buying beans in a can or fucking anything.
It's an interesting concept because we've never really looked at coffee as being potentially cruelty-free.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
We might be onto something for
I know. It's cool, and it's correct because we see different companies trying to do different things, but they do it. And for me, it's like, well, cool, we helped fund this school, and then they've made obviously a lot of money during that year. It's like, all right, cool, if we can help make one school, why can't we make more? But then it's just about a whole other concept that Tim Owen talks about as well, which is really confusing. It's your mind being, yourself being an octopus and having different tentacles, and you've obviously got your personal, your social, your moral, your ethical, and different needs that you have. So then when they're combating each other, that's why you're like, oh no, cool, I'll pick profit over doing good. I'll pick a quick, fast meal, and me thinking it's healthy over the animal's life. And that's just when those tentacles are fighting with each other. So when we can understand those better and live in more alignment with the ones that we value, that's when people make better decisions overall.
Do you always take the hard road?
No, fuck no. No way. I think I ate sushi on the way here. Like, that was just at the shops. Like, just...
Obviously vegan sushi.
Yeah, avocado and seaweed or whatever. But that had plastic around this time. And I'm taking the plastic off and I'm thinking, fuck, what a dickhead.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it was convenient. It was convenient. It wasn't cruelty-free. It was cruelty-free, sorry. It was vegan. So you've also got to, like I just said then, you've got to see which of those tentacles you value and you prioritize most. And then there's obviously going to be a pecking order from there because you cannot prioritize everything at the same time. And for me, a vegan world makes more sense than other things right now because it's so easily to change. Whereas, and we're in control of it, whereas we can't tell Coke right now to stop producing plastic bottles. Or they could technically stop it right now. All companies could. And then we're good with the environmental aspect as well.
People, you get the excuse, our customers don't want us to change.
Oh, I don't know. Is that what they say?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say that.
They'll say that based on price and convenience, yeah.
Because if you change, you're going to have to put the price up and so our customers don't want us to change. That's a part of that vicious cycle.
That's just what we've become, our consumerism and individualization, I guess, yeah.
Do you think you'll stay in business? Do you think you could ever go back to working for someone?
No, I don't think so. Like I don't see how. Unless it's like this. I guess I've chosen poorly in jobs. I guess. So then now it's like if I work for someone, it's because we're able to make this happen bigger on a bigger scale. Yes. That would be the only reason.
So
which
perhaps
is a good reason.
Someone takes over shift and you grow it into. I can't ever see that happening.
But that's the thing. No one has the same idea as you. So when any business, when any person, when any entrepreneur, business person, or idea person is sitting there with an idea and they don't want to tell anyone, which I had once with this app that I was going to do. You don't want to share it because you don't want someone to steal your idea. And then I did some research on that and exploration on that. But then you realize that no one has the same path and the same conviction that you have of that idea to be able to execute it the same as you anyway. So even if you do share it, you'll usually just get more feedback from it to either why it's great or why it's not great, so you can pivot. But if you keep it to yourself, then you're not going to get that. So if no one shares the same vision or conviction for your idea, such shift as an example, or just any idea, then no one's going to do it the same as you. So you might as well fucking do it.
I experienced that with Elixir.
Yeah, well, there you go, yeah.
You know, it's that thing of so many fucking people up to this week, like so many people are like, I'm going to come out with a version of Elixir. I know how Elixir's made. I'm going to come out with my version, right? Yeah, it's please do it. Do it.
It'll push me anyway. It'll push you anyway.
Exactly. Like it will elevate what I'm doing, and perhaps it's a thing that will kick me into competition.
Yeah, exactly. The industry might need it. Yeah, that segment.
Like who knows? Yeah. And then that kicks me into. So is that like? Is the controller of this sim, going back to that, seeing the way that I'm operating in the sim, thinking that they're going to insert a competitor into that to see how, like as an experiment, like how will Lee react now that she's got this other variable that's going on with it? And how will that affect Mapper Forward and what comes from that? And will it cause Lee to shift in a different direction? What if it's just so fucking delicious
I guess
to chew on that thinking.
It's interesting because I think with that in products and ideas, if it is worth its weight, then when competition comes in, it'll grow. And then when you've got stuff like the mini disc and competition comes in, it just disappears because it's negligible and there's no difference.
And what role
So that's what's happened with coffee, say. It became, it's so juicy that when competition came, it just grew and it's growing. And then other stuff doesn't grow as much, like chia water or something.
Yeah, well, and also, like, some things just have their natural life and they fizzle out. Other things are squashed, like the electric car back in the 20s, because it threatens the thriving of another industry.
Oh, yeah, that's corruption.
Right,
Yeah.
which is another interesting variable in amongst all of it, and where does it come from, and what kinds of people have a tendency towards corruption. It's a trait I don't understand at all. Like, why would you?
Yeah.
Do you get it?
No, I didn't get that. I didn't get it. I think I didn't get it. I don't.
I've tried to get my head around the idea of why people act corruptly.
Well, no, sorry. We do understand it then, because they're searching for their truth, and their truth is them. They don't know that it's not them. And that's why with going vegan, it's about you understanding that your truth, you exist, you are, but that others exist and they are, and that you shouldn't take from them. So then I guess that's the corruption is the lack of knowing that.
And that's the part that I can't connect with.
You don't have to.
Right. You know,
that's the best thing. You don't have to.
It's one of those things of like, I don't understand when people are deliberately mean. It's a behaviour I can't get my head around. Corruption is a behaviour I can't get my head around. But those two, there's a correlation between corruption and being deliberately mean. It's kind of a different version of the same thing. Because when someone is corrupt, they are deliberately being mean towards the people who are less than them.
Yeah, fair.
Or they can insert themselves into a situation to derail it and create some fuckery so that other people suffer so that they can gain. And that's the kind of, I don't know whether I don't understand the behaviour or I'm not on board with the mechanics of how to do it, and for that reason I can't get my head around it.
Would that you do understand how it works, but you're just not on board. Same with people. Same with vegan, non-vegan. It's like I understand exactly why you eat meat, and you continue to, but there's this now as well, and that's growing. And that's like, even if we're talking about things that see competition and dissipate, veganism won't be one of those things because there's too many truths there. Whereas vegetarians say vegetarianism or pescatarianism or meat, that will all dissipate now as well because of the truths.
You think it's going to become like Moby's whole thing is like he's excited that in his lifetime the majority of the world will become vegan. Do you think it's going that way? He's been very vocal about that.
If you watch Interstellar, then it's going to become like that because we're just going to terrorize the soil and nothing's going to be able to grow or pasture. So then you're not going to have a choice. But then now it depends. I guess for me, it's lab grown meats are vegan. They're not vegan in the sense that they're not from an animal. They are from an animal, but if it eradicates cruelty in the future, then that's vegan. That's perfect for me. And I don't care what label that is. I don't need to eat it. Would you eat it?
I wouldn't.
If I ate it, I wouldn't kick myself. Like, it's not, because at the end of the day, the reason why people go vegan is to help make a difference, and they want to stop cruelty to animals because it's an animal rights movement.
I went vegan for a different reason.
What was that?
My body just wouldn't accept animal products.
That's plant-based though. So the difference is the ethics and the moral and the mindset.
So do you call plant-based? Is there a distinction between plant-based and vegan?
Yeah, for sure. That one that I just explained there. Health.
Okay, so
the health aspect of it is plant-based. So the best diet that you could eat in the world, which is science-backed, and Dr. Greger's doing a lot of work on that. Heaps of doctors are is whole food plant-based. Right. So if you go whole food plant-based, you're probably going to have the longest life of anyone that you would have anyway, barring an accident or a medical disaster. That's also high up there, but that's the best. But then when you're vegan for an animal rights reason. You're vegan, and that's why people don't.
Plant-based.
So that's why people don't use the word vegan, because they know what it means. And if you don't buy into that, or you're not willing to commit, then it's just easy. You're just not vegan. Don't use that title. But what I was saying about lab-grown meats is, for me, it's not. It's from an animal, so they take cells from an animal and they grow that animal and then they pasteurize it, whatever happens to it, and then they can continue that. So to me, if that's, then you can also mutate that and change that to have less problems. It will have no antibiotics in it. It would have, you can cut cholesterol out, you can cut anything that kills us out. So then that's a lot better result. So you're not technically in the definition of vegan, but in the day after you've taken that cell from the animal and it exists, it's too late anyway. So definitions and labels, that's why sometimes they're a little bit cumbersome and they don't need to be used. They're important sometimes, but in this aspect, it's like whatever's better for all of humanity and all of animals and all the earth is the best option to me, and that's that right now, because that's going to grow quick.
Does it
literally?
Oh yeah, it's like one of the most booming industries in the world.
Yeah.
Does it concern you that we don't know enough about like the genetic mutation in different cells and how that's going to affect how it's going to interact with our own human DNA?
So so that's the same as when we started eating meat. Did we know that meat was going to be the highest causer of death among humans? No, we didn't know that.
I don't know. How do we know if we knew that?
Heart diseases, we didn't know that. Exactly. So we still continued. So we're just doing our best at each given time with the information that we have at our disposal. Now, like I said, we're at the furthest point that humans have ever been in our lives. So we're doing we are. Well, to me, that's how we can explain this world right now. That's how we can explain this right now. We're the furthest. Do you know anyone that's lived further than we have now? No. We're in 2019. September 19. We're the most progressed ever. Yeah. So we're the most
as a
modern
version of this reality, right?
So we're doing the best with that information that we have.
Right.
So then you're going to do your best. So if it's we're able to get things out of the animals that grow in them, like the cancers. So when you're consuming cancer, you don't think about it, you just do it. So we're going to better, and then in 10 years or in 1 year or in 100 years, and they find something better, they find something better. It's not like we always think that we're going to try to do the best and have the best, most complete answer for everything, but it's impossible.
It'll be really interesting to see where it evolves to.
It's going to be quick, that's for sure.
And my concern is that it's quicker than careful.
Yeah, it is, and Musk says the same thing about AI. It's like same thing.
I see those two evolving at pretty much the same rate.
It's any technology now, and that goes back to the whole hockey stick. Like, say for example, existence on Earth is worth 700 pages, or the existence of the Earth and what we know as life, 700 pages.
Why did he pick 700?
6 billion years. I don't know. 6 billion years.
Okay.
We've been here for 4 pages, so human existence out of a 700-page book is about 4 pages. And we're on page 699, and imagine what's happened in 6 billion years in 700 pages. It's going to happen in 1 page at this rate. It's exponential. It's ridiculous. So we don't know.
And you know, that's not even hard to get your head around.
You can't get your head around it.
But no, what I'm saying is...
You can't. I don't think you can, because that's the whole point of it.
Well, if you're living in this era, you're much more open to the idea that that's the acceleration versus someone living in the 20s. Yeah, if you're going to compare yourself to that. But that's what I'm saying.
Then you've got Xavier, my 3-year-old, we don't know the jobs that he's going to have. No. They don't exist right now. Well,
if he's going to have a job at all.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Who knows if we go to the Venus Project. But
he'll also experience the world in a completely different way. Excuse me. A lot of the things that we have as context for our existence today.
Yeah.
You know,
which is fine. People get scared of that. People get scared of that because they're like, oh, they're not going to have this. They're not going to experience grass. Or they're not going to experience this or that. But it's not even. It's just different.
It's just different. Where the evolution of it's going to go.
It is what it is.
Who knows if an asteroid's not going to come and do what it's going to do? Like it's anticipated that twice a year we go through a certain asteroidal belt. And it's a miracle that we haven't had a major catastrophe.
Yeah.
I think an asteroid is a great way to end this conversation.
That's fine. Boom. Yeah.
James Danaskos, thank you very much for an awesome conversation. We just clocked over 2 hours.
Yeah, cool. Sorry guys if that was a bit of a back and forth. But I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah, totally. And if you found this a mindfuck, welcome to the inside workings of both James.
That's true. Yeah, if you got anything out of it, you know that it's tough.
It's a real indication of like how minds like ours work. Some people are going to get it. Some people are going to... I was saying to Shane earlier today, like this podcast episode is not going to be...
That doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense.
It's not going to be for everyone, but there will be people out there that are like us and process as quickly as we do, that are going to think that this is awesome, and they kept up, and
for sure.
It was fun. So thanks, man.
Easy.
I appreciate it. Before we end it, where can people find Shift?
Shift probably best on Instagram. We've
Shift
got
Eatery.
And then, or you can come in and experience what we're actually trying to do.
Look for the Greek guy with the beard.
I'm not there, so that's fine. Look for someone.
Look for someone.
Just
and tell them the map
before
tell them Lee sent you. Yeah. Everyone's awesome. All right. Peace out, friends.
Cool. Thanks.
Peace, love.